What would you do if the whole world laughed in your face just because of the shoes you were wearing? What if every step you took wasn't met with welcome, but with criticism, cameras, and public ridicule by those who believe you didn't deserve to be there? And what if I told you that the very woman they mocked, within less than 15 minutes, brought an entire diamond kingdom to its knees, while the ones sitting on golden thrones fell without warning, without glory? This wasn't just a tennis match. This was a war between arrogance and dignity, between wealth and courage, between the glittering world of status and a heart that refused to kneel. And in today's story, you'll witness one undeniable truth. When unwavering conviction steps onto the court, nothing can stand against it. Have you ever seen a woman walk alone into a kingdom lined with gold, armed with nothing but a heart forged from steel? On the blazing red clay court nestled in the snowy peaks of the Elysian Crown Tennis Club, a place where every footstep echoes power and prestige, a solitary figure appeared. No silk gowns embroidered with gold thread, no diamond-encrusted heels, just a faded white cotton polo, a plain tennis skirt, and a pair of worn-out sneakers bearing the marks of time. Victoria Hayes. She walked through a crowd wrapped in luxury, like a simple flame flickering amid a sea of artificial lights. And then, almost instantly, the stares came, curious, condescending, and cruel. Did the janitor lose her way? A cold voice mocked from the velvet-draped VIP box. No, she must be here to shine our shoes. Another voice chimed in with a shrill laugh, each word slicing through the crisp mountain air like a dagger dipped in scorn. Phones lifted in unison. Cameras flashed nonstop. Victoria, her brown hair tied back neatly, a faded second-hand tennis bag swinging on her shoulder, was live-streamed to the world like a cheap sideshow. Every glance, every laugh, every shutter click was a nail hammered into her dignity. No one asked who she was. No one cared why she was here. To them, that plain outfit alone screamed a verdict that needed no trial. You don't belong here. But what they didn't know, what they had yet to understand, was that in the span of a single morning, this very woman with the battered sneakers would bring an entire diamond dynasty to its knees in a disgrace they would never forget. Amid the indifferent stares and the shrill laughter of a crowd draped in gold and glitter, no one had the slightest clue about the story behind those faded sneakers. Victoria Hayes was no stranger who'd wandered into the realm of the elite by mistake. She was the prodigy once chosen by fate to light up the skies of American tennis. She was the girl who grew up on dusty public courts in the outskirts of Portland, where, under the scorching summer sun, she learned to serve her first ball, coached by her father, whose hands were calloused from years of hard labor. Before she could ride a bicycle, she was already firing volleys sharp as razors. Before she ever knew what designer shoes were, she had lightning-fast feet and eyes that never left the ball. Victoria gave her entire childhood and youth to school tournaments and humble neighborhood matches where all anyone needed was an old ball and a burning dream to compete. That grit earned her a full scholarship to Yale, where she was hailed as the rising star of the global tennis scene. Her name used to echo in whispers from the stands, scribbled down by scouts who saw her as the future. She didn't own crystal-stitched dresses or have agents booking her into lavish galas. But she had something no one could fake, raw talent and an unbreakable heart. And then, everything changed. When her mother was diagnosed with late-stage cancer, Victoria made a choice, one that not everyone in this world of golden trophies would dare to make. She gave up the glory. She walked away from titles, from the dream, to sit beside her mother's hospital bed every single day. She held her frail hand through every chemotherapy session, through every endless night soaked in the antiseptic scent of sterile rooms. While others basked in championships and the spotlight, Victoria was quietly writing the most powerful chapter of her life, one no camera would ever record. She gave up her youth and her future to protect the greatest love she had ever known. And when her mother passed, Victoria walked out of that hospital with only 3 things left: a pair of old sneakers, a second-hand tennis bag, and a heart that had weathered too much loss to ever fear the shallowness of judgment again. Today, as she stood on the blazing red clay of Elysian Crown, every step she took was light, yet carried the weight of a life lived with courage. To those who mocked her, she was nothing more than a joke. But to anyone who has ever loved with their whole heart, who has lost without asking for anything in return, she was the embodiment of a power that could never be broken. The loudspeakers crackled to life, announcing the start of the club's internal tournament. But no one's eyes turned to the A-list players in silk skirts and diamond-studded rackets. Every gaze in the Elysian Crown complex that day was fixed on the woman in worn sneakers, quietly signing in at the registration table. Each of Victoria Hayes' steps on that red clay left more than footprints. They cracked the flawless surface of a world built on arrogance and entitlement. In that moment, a voice sharp as a whip cracked through the alpine air. Eleanora Prescott, wife of a global banking magnate, sneered from the VIP box. "Looks like our club's doing charity work for the poor now." Laughter spilled from crimson-painted lips. High heels tapped a rhythm of mockery against the gemstone-tiled floor. Phones snapped photos of Victoria signing her name with bare hands. No jewelry, no gold watch. Marcus Tate, heir to a trillion-dollar hedge fund, lounged in the front row. He nudged his designer sunglasses up his nose, smirked, and said coldly, "What's next?" The janitors taking the court. The crowd burst into laughter, their Rolex watches catching the mountain's sunlight like golden whips lashing across her pride. A group of heiresses in Swarovski-embroidered tennis dresses circled Victoria in a glimmering semicircle, their words dripping with cruelty. "You think you belong here?" One sneered, tossing a monogrammed Elysian handkerchief at her feet. "Back to the camps, peasant." Another mocked, waving a diamond-encrusted phone in Victoria's face as it zoomed in on her faded sneakers. "Behold, our little thrift store duchess," she added, with a grin that cut like glass. Global live streams exploded. The hashtag Elysian Beggar trended within minutes. Toxic comments flooded in, each screen tap another blade carving into the dignity of the young woman standing in silence. A venture capitalist in a bespoke suit strutted up, pointing at her sneakers. "You're staining the Elysian Crown name." The crowd roared with laughter, the sound echoing through the complex like cruel bells ringing out mockery. And far away, thousands of miles from the court, Victoria's father gripped his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white as he watched the live stream. His weathered face contorted with pain. Every insult, every jeer, was a dagger to the heart of the man who once told his daughter, "You don't need a crown to be a queen." But the crowd wasn't finished. A professional player, daughter of a powerful politician, stood near the net. Her golden hair was tied in a neat bun, her glittering tennis dress sparkling under the sun. She looked at Victoria with a gaze as cold as the alpine snow. Her voice rang loud through the court microphone. "This is a court for the elite, not a public school playground." Laughter surged like a tidal wave, drowning any shred of respect that might have remained. A tennis ball was hurled straight at Victoria's feet. "Pick it up, maid." Victoria stepped past it without a word, her hazel eyes unwavering, though her hand clenched the racket so tightly it turned bone white. The crowd only grew more frenzied. Every insult, every cackle, every contemptuous stare was another stake hammered into the ground beneath her. What they didn't realize was this: the deeper they tried to bury her, the closer they were to digging the grave of their own hollow pride. No one at Elysian Crown that day ever imagined the woman in the battered sneakers would dare to lift her head, let alone challenge anyone. But Victoria Hayes did what no one else had the courage to do. Beneath the cold sunlight and the fluttering Cartier flags, she set her second-hand tennis bag down on the red clay, gripped the racket tightly, and walked straight to the center of the court amid a storm of ridicule and sneers. With a voice calm but sharp as a blade, she spoke. "I challenge you to a single set. If I can't score a single point, I'll kneel, shine your shoes, and apologize. But if I win 6-0, you will bow your head, withdraw from Elysian, and publicly apologize for mocking the courage of someone who wears no diamonds." For a split second, the stadium went completely still, and then, Laughter erupted, jeers filled the air, and live streams surged like a pack of hungry wolves. Her opponent scoffed, calling Victoria a stray from a tattered camp, and accepted the match to a chorus of mocking applause. But Victoria did not flinch. Her hazel eyes gleamed with the cold light of a heart that did not know fear. And in that very moment, she was no longer the one being humiliated. She was the only soul on that court powerful enough to make an entire kingdom of vanity feel afraid. While the crowd kept laughing, not a single one of them realized that the woman in the faded sneakers was once the silent nightmare of every college court. Victoria Hayes, the name that once made even the most prestigious tennis academies in America bow their heads. She was known as the serving machine of Yale, with serves clocking over 120 miles per hour. Scouts used to whisper her name with awe, calling her the rising star who would rewrite the history of women's tennis. At 19, in a closed-door match, Victoria had utterly destroyed her opponent, none other than today's Elysian princess herself, with a score of 6-2. It was a humiliating loss, one that the rival's powerful family buried beneath money and political influence. But everything changed when her mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Victoria walked away from the spotlight, from the bright future the world offered her, and returned to a cold hospital room. Day after day, she sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand through each labored breath. Victoria didn't leave the professional circuit because she lost. She left because she chose something greater than fame, family. And now, after years of grief and silence, her heart no longer beats for fleeting trophies. It beats with an unshakable conviction. True dignity isn't found in glittering cups or diamond-studded gowns, but in the way you stand tall when the world tries to knock you down. They knew nothing, but in just one short set, Victoria was going to make them remember the name they once mocked and never forget it again. The sound of the ball striking the red clay echoed like a war drum. Victoria stood across from her opponent in absolute silence. No flashy declarations, no glittering symbols of wealth, only the calm, cold steel of someone forged in fire. The first serve from her opponent flew like an arrow, fast and sharp. But Victoria, light as a summer breeze sweeping across a golden field, returned it with a flawless forehand down the line. The ball landed clean, unreachable. First point, Victoria. A hush rippled through the stands. No one wanted to believe what they had just witnessed. The next serve came. Victoria stepped forward close to the net and, with a feather-light touch, placed a drop shot so delicate it seemed to float. Her opponent lunged, slipped, and fell hard onto the expensive red clay. 2-0. Like lightning, Victoria gave her no time to recover. Each of her steps across the court sliced through the glittering illusion like a blade. Each shot she hit was sharp enough to cut through the air like an invisible spear. 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. The crowd fell completely silent. Every sneer, every cruel laugh dissolved like cold mist in a mountain wind. Livestream phones trembled, now capturing only the destruction, utter and undeniable, unfolding before them. Point after point, Victoria seized them with precision, with finality. No hesitation, no mercy, no need for referees, no need for reputation, just raw talent against hollow arrogance. The set ended in 11 minutes. 6-0. The scoreboard lit up, cold and bright, like a final verdict etched in stone. No one breathed. Victoria's opponent collapsed to her knees, her once sparkling tennis dress stained with red clay. The invisible crown she'd worn crumbled into dust under the weight of Victoria Hayes's faded sneakers. Not a single clap, not a single laugh, only silence. A heavy, suffocating silence pressed down on every soul in the stands. Victoria stood tall. Her back was straight. Her hazel eyes scanned the crowd, not with rage, not with pride, but with a calm so clear it stung. And in that stillness, one undeniable truth remained. Dignity and talent don't need crystal gowns to shine. They shine on their own, in ways imitation diamonds will never understand. As the final point landed, while her opponent sat crumpled on the red clay, dress stained, eyes clouded with humiliation. A strange sound echoed from above. The thrum of helicopter blades slicing through the mountain air. Every head in the stadium tilted upward. A sleek black helicopter descended onto Elysian Crown's private landing pad. The door swung open, and out stepped a man whose very presence drained the breath from the entire arena. Alexander Blackwood, billionaire founder of Elysian Crown Tennis Club, the owner of dozens of luxury resorts across the globe. A man whose nod could redraw the financial power map overnight. He stepped down in a perfectly tailored gray coat, jet black hair slicked back, icy blue eyes scanning the crowd with razor precision. No entourage, no assistants, only the presence of absolute, undeniable power. The crowd held its breath. Phones trembled in outstretched hands. Whispers of disbelief rolled like a tsunami. And Victoria, the girl in the faded sneakers, stood still, calm, as if she'd been waiting for this moment all along. Alexander walked across the court, his every step slicing through the suffocating silence. He strode past the stunned faces, never glancing their way. Then, before the eyes of the world, live-streamed on every device, he reached Victoria. He wrapped his arms around her, pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, and spoke in a deep, unwavering voice that echoed through the breathless stands. "I'm sorry, my love, for letting them treat you this way." In that moment, the entire kingdom of vanity came crashing down. Those who had sneered now stared like they'd seen a ghost. Eleanor Prescott clenched her Hermes clutch so tightly her fingers turned white. The socialites stood frozen, mouths agape. Marcus Tate's phone slipped from his hand and hit the ground. He didn't even notice. Alexander turned to face the crowd. His icy blue eyes swept over the pale faces. And then, with a voice like a sword drawn in court, he declared, "Elysian Crown belongs to me, and every one of you who humiliated my wife will pay." He pulled out his phone. On the screen, a list. Contracts canceled. Memberships revoked. Sponsorships terminated immediately. Name by name. Face by face. Erased from the world they once believed they ruled. An empire of arrogance crumbled, in minutes, beneath the feet of the woman they once laughed at. As Victoria's opponent trembled and bowed in apology, her dirt-stained hand reaching toward those faded sneakers, Victoria simply smiled softly. Her voice, calm yet piercing, rang out across the silent court. "I don't need anyone to shine my shoes. I just need you to learn how to respect the things money can't buy." She turned away, her low-tide brown hair catching in the breeze, leaving behind a crumbling kingdom of arrogance at her feet. Alexander took her hand. The icy blue in his eyes now melted into warmth as he whispered for her alone to hear. "You never needed them. You've always been queen in your own world." On the scoreboard, her name, Victoria Hayes, blazed beside a perfect 6-0. Global live streams exploded. Hashtags #Victoria Hayes and #Queen of Elysian swept across every corner of social media. Those who once mocked her now stood in stunned silence. The fake crowns they wore shattered beneath the quiet steps of a woman with a steadfast heart and a pair of time-worn shoes. That day at Elysian Crown, the world didn't just witness a match. It witnessed dignity defeating every ounce of fabricated splendor. Victoria didn't need a thank you. She didn't need apologies. Because the most beautiful victory is the one you win when you never lose yourself. Victoria Hayes' story reminds us that dignity doesn't come from the brand you wear. It comes from how you stand tall when the entire world tries to push you down. Her worn-out shoes didn't make her small. Her courage and conviction made an entire kingdom bow. The lesson here is crystal clear. Never judge someone by their appearance. True strength comes from within, and sometimes silent pride is the loudest rebellion. To me, it's a powerful reminder. You don't need to sparkle to be respected. You just need to be yourself, steadfast, kind, and unshakable. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and share it. And don't forget to subscribe to Toch Story, where truth, dignity, and quiet courage always shine through.